Here.
Thank you. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, we're going to move the executive session items till the end of our agenda, and I'm going to rearrange one item on our agenda, and I'm going to go right to new business to item 9D, which is the acceptance and appropriate a $150,000 donation from John G. Martin Foundation for construction of the John G. Martin Foundation Outdoor Education Center at Mixville Park. Mr. Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Be it resolved that the Town Council approves resolution number 071321-5. Be it resolved that the Town Council accepts and appropriates a $150,000 donation from the John G. Martin Foundation for the construction of the John G. Martin Education Center at Mixville Park.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Do we have a second? Thank you, Mr. Talbot. Back to you, Mr. Walsh.
Mr. Frank Lohman, who is oversees the John G. Martin Foundation, has been very generous to this town. If you've seen the signs in front of the youth center, the Park and Rec, and the fire station just recently, through the John G. Martin Foundation, we have gotten these, and Mr. Lohman has generously, with the John G. Martin Foundation, is giving us a grant to help replace the what was attached to the pavilion at Mixville Park, which has been gone for about 4 or 5 years and is desperately needed for storage for youth, for use during camps, and it's going to be an education center. So I am totally in support of this, and I can't thank Mr. Lohman and the John G. Martin Foundation for their generosity once again.
Thank you very much, Mr. Walsh. Mr. Lohman, I see you in the audience, sir. Would you like to come up and make any comment? That's fine. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I want to make sure that we offer that opportunity.
We're very happy to do this. I got to give John Golix out here tonight. I got to give credit, because the other items that we did for the town with the signs at the side of the fire department and whatever, we did not need to do a grant request. But when you look at $150,000, we had to do a grant. John did an outstanding job with Sean's help in hitting all of the highlights of the Martin Foundation guidelines: bricks and mortar, a permanent structure, or something that's going to last longer than a month, children education, and he hit all the nails on the head. And it was easy for us. There are 6 members of the board, most of whom are from Hartford, by the way, or East Hartford, or West Hartford, rather. So I'm the only Cheshireite. But after 40 years of serving on the board, they sort of listened to me and give me a small break to come to my hometown, my adopted hometown, to do some good things in town. So we've had some fun. It started almost 20 years ago with the video production studio at the high school, which we did through the Cheshire Education Foundation, and then the playground at Bartland Park, and then the dog park, where we gave them the $10,000 to get the dog fence up so they could get their dog park going. We've given the lobby to the Cheshire Community Food Pantry, which is absolutely gorgeous. We've just finished the sign, as Don said, at the firehouse, which I think is first class. We have the signs, and I was very pleased to see that Saturday and Sunday we had a huge swim meet at Bartland Park. And it did me proud to say that all the people coming from out of town were at least greeted by a nice sign to tell them where they were going. And of course, Park and Rec, John couldn't go without his sign, and I know Michelle squeezed in under the wire to get her youth services sign. So we've had some fun, and we're very proud of what we've done. So I want to see it continue. As I just said to Sean on the QT, I'm working on project number 12 as we speak. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, I'm happy that you guys are happy, and the Martin Foundation's happy. So we'll take it from there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Frank, for your kind words and your kindness back to this community, yourself, your board members, and your foundation. Questions or comments from members of the council? Mr. Talbot.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much, Mr. Lohman, for for your efforts. Please thank the foundation on our behalf as well. You may refer to it as fun. We refer to it as dramatic improvements to this community, which we greatly appreciate. And we can't thank you enough for the role that you have played. And I know you're being very modest in deflecting some of the spotlight, but we know that you've had a great deal to do with this, and we certainly appreciate it. And thank you. Thank you,
Thank you,
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Talbot. Other questions or comments? Yes, Ms. Pavano.
Yes, Mr. Lemon, we thank you. You're a very kind and wonderful person, and we're very lucky to have you in the town of Cheshire. Thank you again.
Thank you, Ms. Pavano. Other questions or comments? No? Well, Frank, I don't know what more I can say other than to say thank you. You guys have just continued to give back yourself, your fellow board members, your foundation. It goes a long way. As Mr. Talbot just said, we are on a budget on many items, and a lot of these items are things that we just wouldn't have the discretionary money to do, at least at the times that we're doing them. And so it is timely. It's effective money that's going to great use, and we greatly appreciate it here in the community of Cheshire. So thank you so much for what you're doing and what it sounds like you may be doing next. So, we do appreciate that.
Probably more than any. The video production studio was our largest to date at 100,000. This is going to spread out over 2 years, which will mean the money will come in over 2 years to you guys. But I think with the crew that you have working on the project, with your town manager, with Public Works and whatever, I think the project will be fun, Peter. I think it's going to be fun to see it grow and go. And I know that Mixville is such an important part of the Cheshire community. So I think we'll do well with it. Thank you all very much. God bless you all, and have a good night.
Thank you. We are going to vote, and hopefully we're going to accept the money in a moment, because that's the most important thing. If there are no other questions, if there's no other questions or comments, that's why I'm trying to get to this vote quick, Frank. No other questions. And I forgot, we have 2 council members on TV. I apologize. I don't know if either of you had any questions or comments for Mr. Lohman or anything else. And thank you both. I know you took time out of your personal schedules to be here tonight, so thank you both for being here. With that, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously, or those that are here. Mr. Lohman, thank you. Thank you, sir. Okay, we're now going to go back to our public communications, and we're going to start with our COVID-19 update from our Chesapicot Health Director, Maura Esposito. Maura, welcome.
Thank you, everyone. Okay. Let me put my stuff down here so I don't hit any of these buttons. Thank you again for having me here today. Just some quick updates. In June, we had 13 cases. It's so nice that I've got these low numbers. In July, just these last 2 weeks, we have 6 cases. 4 of those cases, I only have information on 5 of them, but 4 of them were in their 50-year-olds, and 1 was in the age of 80 years old. We added 1 more today. In the state since July 2nd, 175 new cases had occurred. 3 of those were in Cheshire. It is nice to say that from June to now, we used to be at a case rate per 1,000. It went from 3.2, which I was thrilled to death with, to 2.2, to 2, to 1, to 0.07. We are under 1. It is really wonderful to see that in our community. Currently in Connecticut, there are still 25 people in the hospital. I want to just reiterate the importance of getting vaccinated. The majority of those people, so we've been told, are all unvaccinated individuals. I wanted to touch upon today, because I know that a lot in the news are the variants, just to help clarify if there's any questions. Currently, right now, there are 2 types of variants. There's variants of concern and there's variants of interest. It's the variants of concerns that we are watching very closely, of which are the alpha, beta, gamma, and the delta variants. They all are assigned a number. very confusing. But right now, currently, there have been 51 cases in Connecticut. There is a database that kind of shows where these cases started occurring, and really the uptick started with the Delta variant in May. Since mid-June to now, it is really widening, and it's widening for several reasons. 52% of our current cases are Delta variants. This variant is a very easily transmittable variant. So that is what is causing it. It's more transmittable than our regular COVID from a year ago. Some of the symptoms that you would get are just mimic the common cold: headache, runny nose, sneezy, and sore throat. But we know that it isn't always the common cold, depending upon your health status. As we know, there are many people in the hospital suffering from this. We also know that, like in the past, from the other variant, our true COVID-19, the transmission rate was about one. You would, if you had it, you transmitted it probably to about 1 to 2 persons. It's now, if you have the Delta variant, you're about transmitting it to 4 people. So that is why the numbers are starting to creep up. Is it more deadly? Then, that's the big question out there. There's still a lot of studies about this variant, and I'm sure that more information will be coming. And just know that, viruses do mutate, and we may go on to a different one. So there is, they did just release a new study that basically said that those people that did get the Delta variant, that were vaccinated, if they got the Delta variant and were not vaccinated, they had a higher risk of getting into the hospital within 14 days. So that's why all of a sudden now you're seeing the variant going up, and the hospital rates, especially in those places that have low vaccination rates. So just want to know that all the U.S. vaccines, the Pfizer, Moderna, J&J, are all effective against this variant. It doesn't mean you won't get it, but getting hospitalized and death is less likely than if you were not vaccinated. So where do we stand with vaccinations? I am so happy so pleased with the Cheshire rates. It's probably why you haven't seen me a lot, because I'm in my other 2 communities trying to bolster them up. They want to be like Cheshire. Well, then we got to get up to be those numbers like Cheshire. Right now, 67.4% of fully vaccinated in Cheshire. Those people over the age of 65 are 100% vaccinated. Of course, that number is not perfect. The number was 121%. I didn't know we could do that, but I guess so. Between the 60-45s or 5 to 64, we're at 78%. Our 16 to 44, we are at 74%. That is a really great number compared to the rest of the country. Even our 12 to 15-year-olds, they're at 53%. So I kind of know where I need to be targeting my work, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But if there's anybody who's watching this that still needs to find a vaccine, there is, if you go on Google or your search engine, you can look up Vaccine Finder, or you can just dial 211 and somebody will help you. But I did want you to know that I did check with CVS and Rite Aid. Both CVSs do have Pfizer, which is allowable for ages 12 and up. And the South Main Rite Aid is doing Moderna, if you have a preference. If you are looking for J&J, and some people are, Chestercott does have J&J. We are giving J&J at our pop-up clinics. So if anybody needs to know or wants one that's watching, please call my office and we'll get you that information to get you that shot. There's a lot of current discussion, I'm sure, if everybody's watched the news today, about the governor's executive orders or not. Currently, unvaccinated people must still wear masks when inside building. And last week, the CDC released its school recommendations, which I did forward to all superintendents. They are recommending masks to be worn for the fall. So we are waiting on the DPH and state to provide us some input. But I just want you to know that already there's been a lot of discussion starting next week. We're resuming our weekly superintendent phone call. And tomorrow I'm attending a director of health meeting just to discuss all the impacts that may impact. Due to the fact that we were looking at those numbers of vaccinations, we do know anybody out there that wants to get their child 12 and older vaccinated in this town. There's 3 pharmacies currently giving that. But regardless, we're in the process right now working with the school system to do a new model, a drive-through Pfizer clinic for August. We're in the discussions right now with the Cheshire Public Schools and the Cheshire Police Department about logistics. Just something simple to put it up there. This has worked in other communities. Over in Old Saybrook, they were doing drive-through clinics and you just kind of pull over and but of course, it's a need in the community, so we have no problem popping that up for them. Today, just so you know this, we did over 11,000 vaccines, and we did a heavy lot on many age 65 and older who are eligible for Medicare. We finally received approval from the state of Connecticut to do some back billing for Medicare. So for those seniors that are over the age of 65 or are on Medicare, they did receive an email from Chespercott today, basically saying that we were going to be asking for the red, white, and blue card so that we can try to do some back billing. I have to say there's a lot of, we were a little hesitant about this because there's so many scams in this world, and asking someone for such an important medical information is a little scary. So I had already notified Sean of our intention. I already notified the PD in case they got any calls. I notified the area health directors because we were doing many different towns. So we've been receiving calls, and people are also going to be receiving a letter from us by Friday explaining this. We are also doing a very heavy thing in the Cheshire Herald to let everybody know this is not a scam, this is real. And people are calling our office all day today. So, and it's kind of nice. They're kind of thanking us again for that we did it and that they're willing to help us. So again, it's not that they have to pay anything. It's just covering hopefully administrative overhead costs. So if you like the service, we hope you help us. So again, the phone number 272-2761. You can speak to me more, or you can speak to anybody in the staff. Any other questions?
Maura, thank you so much for your time and your energy. I know you're still working really hard, so thank you for that. Questions or comments from members of the council? Yes, Mr. Talbot.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mara, thank you again.
Thank you.
Sound like a broken record at this
I
point.
know.
But,
It's okay.
know. Exactly. Quick question regarding the Pfizer vaccine and kind of the conflicting information around booster shot for Pfizer. Can you set the record straight for us?
I can tell you only what I know and what I've heard with Dr. Fauci is basically that Pfizer had asked to speak to them yesterday or today. I don't know what day it was. But basically it wasn't that they were asking for any kind of approval. They just wanted to have a discussion with them. There's still so many unknowns. I think Pfizer is willing to do it. I'm sure they have the supply to do it. But they're waiting to see why put something else out there if it isn't needed. So I think we're still watching. Are those numbers going to go down? Now, it's a little worrisome. Our community is in a really great state. I mean, we have high vaccination numbers. We know the only way to get rid of this virus is by vaccinations. But there's a lot of parts of the country that are not doing that. So are their numbers going to go down, and then our immunization starts waning, and then it's going to come? So there's a lot of discussion. I wish I had all the answers, but but I don't know where we stand yet. But there's a possibility. And if it is, the Public Works Department has been wonderful. They've left me, we used their trailer during all of this. My stuff is still in the trailer so that if we need to get it out there in a short period of time, we can do that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Chair.
Mr. Talbot. Other questions or comments for Ms. Esposito? More, a couple things briefly, and one will
Sure.
follow up on Mr. Talbot. But do you have any information you can share with us and the public on the effectiveness of the vaccines relative to these variants? Whether they can get the disease and the symptoms are much less. They will get it. They're much less. I mean, both not only getting it, but also, minimizing the symptoms and,
Yeah.
potentially the causes for hospitalization.
Yeah, well, the information that was out there originally, if you go back to the original studies of Pfizer, they came out with that they were like, generally 95% effective. If you want to drill down to those studies, you will see that those numbers kind of vary depending on age group. They have said that their vaccines are effective. Doesn't mean, remember, you can be 95%, but it's that 5%, you can still get it. But what they're saying and what the studies are saying is that you won't get it as bad. You probably, like I said, you probably won't end up in the hospital. You won't end up in, dying because you have those antibodies built into you. Now, there was an article today that did talk about somebody vaccinated that died. But if you read deeper down, he was vaccinated in a different country. He didn't have our vaccines. So you got to read don't just read the headlines. You got to read what's into the depth of it. So they're all three manufacturers are saying that it's fine.
Great. And relative to the boosters, is there anybody doing any research on antibodies or things of that nature? I know we're kind of waiting and seeing how long these vaccines work. I mean, as I said last time, and I know you don't have the answer,
Yeah.
but I think we're all really worried about those potentially most at risk, and they're the ones that got the vaccines first. So, how quickly will the vaccine wear off? How long can we wait to consider doing boosters for them?
I am sure there are tons of companies with CDC researching all of that. Am I privy to it? No. I see it when it comes out on the MMWR, and it's usually old news by the time I learn it. But I can guarantee you that those are all really good questions that I think everybody in this whole world wants to know. And so I'm sure there's studies and they'll be coming out. They're slowly coming out dribs and drabs now. So it's kind of nice for me to be reading them. And when I see them, I do try to share.
And thank you. I know you don't have the exact answer, but for the public's edification, at this point, there is nothing out there for a booster shot that anyone needs to be seeking at this point.
No, there is not a booster shot available at this point.
Okay.
I'm sure there may be something in research, but there's not right now in that I know of.
I just want to be clear for the public. There's probably people watching and some of those that were initially vaccinated many, many, many months ago and probably getting a little concerned about how long it is effective. And so at this point, we don't have anything more to share with them, but when you do, you'll share it with us. And
I will, and just be really take heed that our numbers are really low, and just encourage people to get the vaccinations because that's the only way that we're going to be able to stop this virus from spreading.
great. Thank you, Maura, so
Okay.
much for your time. And again, thanks to your whole staff who continues to work hard. I know we sound like broken records, but I'm not sure you can say thank you enough when people are really working hard. So thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, we're going to move on to the summary of fiscal 2021 fourth quarter consent calendar donations. You all have a copy of that. Once again, very generous donations given by many members of this community to a variety of causes. Any questions on that summary? No? Okay. With that, we'll move on to public comments. Are there any members of the public that would like to address the council? Have any questions or comments on any matter? Please come up to the podium and give us your name and address for the record. Anybody? Okay, seeing none, I'll move on to item 5, approval of minutes, the regular meeting of June 8th, 20th, June 8th to 20th of 2021, special meetings of June 10th, June 15th, June 22nd, and July 1st of 2021, and the public hearing of June 15th, 2021. Thank you, Mr. Talbot. Do we have a second? Thank you, Ms. Pavano. Any questions on the minutes, comments? Seeing none, with that, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously of those that are here. Thank you. We will now move on to item 6, which is consent calendar. Mr. Bowery.
Mr. Chairman, be it resolved that the town council approves resolution 071321-1, the consent calendar for July 13, 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Bowery. Do we have a second? Thank you, Mr. Talbot. Mr. Bowery?
Mr. Chairman, there are many generous gifts are on here in addition to some grant acceptances, but $5,800 worth of gifts just this month alone. Benches and donations for the Jitney bus that we're talking about later on the agenda, and other places, library, gift account and all. So it's just wonderful. It's a generous community.
Great. Thank you. No other questions or comments? Call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously of those that are here. Thank you. Going to move on to new business, 9A, authorization to apply for a Connecticut Department of Transportation Capital Assistance Grant for approximately $70,000 for the purchase of a new minibus. Mr. Bowery.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. The Budget Committee reviewed this at our meeting earlier, and I'm going to read the motion because there's an adjustment, and I would let the two gentlemen on the TV, our council members Slocum and Jenks, know also, because they're members of the Budget Committee, but things changed in the interim. So let me read this first. Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution 071321-2. Be it resolved that the town council authorizes application for a Connecticut Department of Transportation Capital Assistance Grant for approximately $140,000 for the purchase of 2 new minibuses.
Thank you, Mr. Bowery. Is there a second? Mr. Talbot, thank you. Back to you, Mr. Bowery.
Thank you. If I could explain, because again, things changed from our earlier meeting a little bit. This program has changed from an 80-20 program, which it traditionally had been for reimbursement, to one where they will pay this year 100%. So our human services director smartly said, well, let's apply for 2 and see what we get, because we have 4 in use. And if we can get 2 of them to be new and the others are 5 years old and have quite some miles on them, and it would be nice if we could have some in better condition and in good shape, and possibly expand our program as we are growing as a community. Our population is still aging as a percentage of our community. So I certainly think this is worthwhile and intend to support it.
Thank you, Mr. Bowery. Questions or comments from members of the council? Mr. Walsh?
Yeah, I'd just like some clarification for those of us who have not quite reached that age to use this, but maybe approaching it very soon. If maybe we could have Michelle or somebody could explain how this is used, so that for those who may already be of age and aren't aware of this, and especially if we're going to have new buses, I think it's important that the public know.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh.
So our buses, particularly those that are received through this grant program, are used for the elderly and disabled in our community. And we provide transportation for things like medical appointments, hairdresser appointments, grocery shopping on a regular basis, trips back and forth to the senior center, as well as some recreational trips that we might have at the senior center. But they are used for the elderly and disabled. The transportation is limited to that population.
And to use it, there's a number they call, and
So, yeah, they would call the dispatch number, which is 203-272-0047. And Eileen, who was our dispatcher, who was wonderful, will schedule an appointment for them to get picked up, and one of our drivers will go out and pick them up.
okay, thank you. It is a great service, and I think to be able to offer this to those in our community is great, and I will fully support this, and hopefully we can get the 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Thank you, Michelle, for coming up. Other questions, Mr. Talbot?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Michelle, just curiosity, I know that we've been replacing, kind of on a rotating basis. So what is the status of the current fleet right now?
So we have two relatively new buses, because we received a bus in 2016 and one in 2017. So two new ones. And so we have two older ones that meet the eligibility requirements for replacement now. So those are the two that we would replace. And then the beauty of this as well is that when we replace those two older vehicles, which means they've reached the 5-year or 100,000 mile limit at this point. The beauty of this is that we can keep those vehicles or use them in another department in town. So at that point, we replace them. They're ours to do with what we please. So sometimes we do sell them and we're able to gain some revenue from that. But I know the fire department has previously expressed interest in having one to use at locations where they might be standing for quite some time. So there are ways that we can use the buses that we're replacing as well.
Thank you. You not only answered the original question, but you took care of the follow-up during your answer as well. So thanks, Michelle. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Talbot, and you answered my questions as well. So thank you, Mr. Talbot, and thank you, Michelle. Mr. Bauer, do you have something?
No, no, sir.
Anybody else? Okay. Seeing Mr. Jinks or Mr. Slocum, nothing? No?
All set, thank you.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Those that are here, although Mr. Slocum, I don't see him, so I don't think he's voting, Ms. Melton.
Just to confirm, did you amend the resolution though? I just want to make sure. To
Yes.
140,000?
To 140,000.
Thank you. Just want to make sure. Thank you.
Yes, the motion was amended to the number of $140,000, and that's what we voted on. And it voted unanimously. Those that are present, Mr. Slocum has stepped out of the room, so he did not vote. Okay. We'll now move on to item 9B, acceptance and appropriation of the annual Connecticut Department of Children and Families Youth Services Bureau enhancement for $10,734 to fund positive youth programs and services. Ms. Pavano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution 071321-3. Be it resolved that the town council accepts and appropriates the annual Connecticut Department of Children and Families Youth Services Bureau Enhancement Grant for $10,734 to fund positive youth programs and services.
Thank you, Ms. Pavano. Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Back to you, Ms. Pavano.
Yes, this is an annual, the Department of Human Services receives this annually, and the funds will be used for positive youth and development programs and services associated with the youth services.
Thank you, Ms. Pavano. Are there any questions or comments from members of the council? No, seeing none. Obviously, this is money that's well received. We're happy to take it every year. I know Michelle and her staff can use it, and it goes to a great need in this community. So I'm going to be happy to support this. If there's no other questions or comments, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Those that are here, Mr. Slocum is back and did vote. Okay, we're going to move on to 9C, discussion of possible allocation of $1,000 from the capital planning account for site test fit services for school modernization planning purposes. Mr. Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution number 071321-4. Be it resolved that the town council allocates $10,000 from the capital planning account for site test services for school modernization planning purposes and authorizes engaging Moser Pylan Nelson Architects LLC for said services.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Do we have a second?
I'll
Thank you,
second
Ms. Pavano. Before I get back to you, Mr. Walsh, just quickly, I just want to explain to the group, as you all know, we had a test fit bid of $4,500 for one school. And I think at this point, potentially, we're only looking to do one school, but I felt it was important that we authorize more money into this account so that we can use it for like-kind services to the extent that we and or the Board of Ed determine that we need to do additional test fit or some works relative to those test fits. So I think it's appropriate that it's increased from the 4,500 to give us a little leeway. I just want to let you all know that that was my request to do it, and hopefully no one has an issue with that. I think it just makes it easier for staff to have that money available to them. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was going to explain I agree with our chair about that. I think as we move forward with the school modernization plan and we're looking at the option that was presented to us by the SMC, it's important to find out if an elementary school can fit on the property behind Norton. So this money will go to do a test fit to make sure that, we're going along the same path that we need to be in order to move forward with the school modernization.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Are there any questions or comments from members of the council? Seeing none, with that, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously of those that are here. Thank you. We will move on to 9E, acceptance and appropriation of a total of $10,674.27 in vehicle and equipment auction proceeds to the capital asset account for maintenance and purchases of public works vehicles and equipment. Mr. Bowery.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution 071321-6. Be it resolved that the town council accepts and appropriates a total of $10,674.27 in vehicle and equipment auction proceeds to the capital asset account for maintenance and purchases of public works vehicles and equipment.
Thank you, Mr. Bowery.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Talbot. Back to you, Mr. Bowery.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Budget Committee reviewed this earlier, and the 10 items that the town had no more use for, but still had some value to them. We try to get every dollar we can, and these were put on the state auction site, and we received $10,600 that we are putting into a fund that can be used for maintenance and sometimes purchases of some of the equipment. And ancillary to that, we ask that the number of the amount of money that's in this be made available to us at our next capital budget workshop at the end of the month. That may help in our deliberations for some of the purchases of equipment.
Thank you, Mr. Bowery. Questions or comments from members of the council? Seeing none, call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously, or those that are here. Thank you. We will move on to 9F, discussion of possible action regarding award of bid for construction of the police department lockers capital project. Ms. Pavano.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution 071321-7. Be it resolved that the town council, per the recommendation of the Public Building Commission, approves the award of contract for the construction of the police locker room and HVAC improvement project to Orlon Anali and Sons Incorporated for $1,428,900.
Thank you, Ms. Pavano. Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Ms. Pavano?
Yes, thank you. This is for the construction of a locker room and HVAC improvements at the station. Police station, the scope is to upgrade the lockers and relocate file storage and address existing moisture issues with the HVAC. This came in under budget, I believe, correct, Mr. Chair?
That is correct. It was originally budgeted at $1.8 million. I think we have about $1.720 remaining in that count. Obviously, we had some soft costs as part of that project, and the bid came in at approximately $1,428,000. Correct, Mr. Nowotny?
Correct.
Thank you. Back to you, Ms. Pavano.
Thank you. This construction is anticipated to occur for 10 months beginning in the summer of 2021. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pavano. And Mr. Nowotny, is there anything you'd like to add regarding this project? It's certainly, for me, an exciting project. I think it's long overdue. I'm happy that we got a great budget on this, and I'm looking forward to supporting it in a few minutes.
Sure. I think Ms. Pavano did an excellent job explaining it, and I can leave it there. I'm just here to answer any questions. It is under budget. There's a healthy contingency to cover any unknown costs, and I think the project can proceed with a fair expectation of success, an excellent expectation of success.
Thank you, Mr. Nowotny. Questions, comments from members of the council? With that, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Those that are here, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Nowotny. Okay, we're going to move on to 9G, discussion and possible action regarding potential changes to the administration of the Quinnipiac Park bathroom capital project. Mr. Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution number 071321-8. Be it resolved that the town council, per the recommendation of the Public Building Commission, rejects the bid bids for bid number 2021-13 for a precast bathroom building at Quinnipiac Park, and further authorizes the Public Building Commission to bid the renovation of the existing bathroom facility at Quinnipiac Park.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Thank you, Ms. Pavano. Mr. Walsh.
Yes, thank you. Originally, we had put out the bid to put new bathrooms, I guess, at Quinnipiac Park, and the bids came in quite a bit higher than we had expected. And I'm sure Mr. Nowotny can further explain the situation there.
Sure, I'll try to do this briefly. The PBC, as you can imagine, kind of wrestled with this project a little bit. As Mr. Walsh said, there were only 2 bids received for the precast bathroom. The low bid was about $358,600. With a contingency on top of that, you're looking at pretty close to $400,000 to construct that building and have an expectation of success. So the problem is the existing budget's about $255,000. So it's over $145,000 short, somewhere in that range, which is a lot of money for a very nice bathroom, but 4 fixtures, 2 per side, that's used 7 months of the year. So that's a concern the PBC had, is that it's not a year-round bathroom or anything else. It certainly, Quinnipiac is a very active park and very deserving of having facilities, but it's an expensive proposition. So at their meeting on May 27th, they recommended that the council reject those bids, and at this point concentrate on rehabbing the existing bathroom at the park, which is going to be in the $125,000 range, which can be borne certainly by the funding available in the project at this point. And then if the council so chooses to have another separate bathroom constructed out there, they recommend a budget of $475,000 for construction of a building similar to this one, just to be sure. But certainly the costs, I think we're seeing some costs involved with the escalation in construction materials and availability and everything. So this may not be the best time to build a standalone building like this. The PBC obviously leaves it to the council to be the final arbiter of this, but that's their recommendation, to consider rehabbing first and then go back out for new construction at a later date.
Thank you, Mr. Nowotny. Questions or comments? Mr. Talbot?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. George, would if you redo the existing facility, would it include expansion?
It would not. It would just be rehabbing the existing building the way it is. There is a plan early on in the process. There was a plan to expand that to double its size, similar to Mixville. It would look very similar to Mixville. The only issue is that it's tucked into the far corner of the park. So
Yeah.
anybody on those far fields over by the treatment plant, it's a long walk to get to a bathroom. So it does make sense to have a bathroom somewhere else in the park. And temporarily, that could be served by porta johns or something scattered on that side of the fields for the time being, something of that nature, possibly to take the edge off the walk in the short term, and then until something can be figured out. But right now the rehab would just be making the current ones fully ADA compliant, the way we did at Cheshire Park and McNamara 2 years ago, I guess.
Are there recommendations for a park that size that gets that type of use, what we should have there for restroom facilities?
You can go by head count, but the problem is it's so transient that, they're there for a few hours and then gone again. So it's not like a building like this or even a stadium where you're going to bring in people all the time.
Yeah.
But there are metrics for that, and we don't meet it. And frankly, if there was a new building out there, we wouldn't meet it
We
either.
still wouldn't.
Yeah,
Okay.
right. So.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Chair.
Mr. Talbot. Mr. Walsh?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Nowotny, do you know, are those the original bathrooms? Have they ever been updated or done, or that's original to the park when they built them?
Correct. Yeah. To my knowledge, they haven't really been updated at all,
Yeah.
or certainly not extensively, but I want to say most of the plans we have those are from the early 80s, 1983. somewhere
Okay,
in that
because
range.
last time I was in them was probably 15 years ago, and they weren't in great condition back then. So I fully support this, trying to renovate those, and hopefully down the line, we can add to getting new ones for the other part of the field. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Other questions or comments? Mr. Jinks?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. George, did the Public Building Commission look at simply doing a 2-feature bathroom on that side rather than the 4? Is that just something that they can't do or don't want to do, or what's the thought process there?
Sure. Good question, or good point, Mr. Jinks. When the bid was put out, there is an alternate in the bid. It's alternate 1. And in the low bidder case, that bid is $334,000. So it's about $24,000 less than the base bid. And that alternate 1 is 1 fixture per side. So you'd have either unisex or male and female, similar to the one on the trail down at West Main. It would be a building of that size. But for the $24,000 difference, it's the costs are all in running the utilities down to that location and doing a little bit of paving in that area for ADA purposes and that sort of thing. So it's in my opinion, it's not worth the effort to save $24,000 to go that route.
Okay, so it's just much more, we're just getting a lot more money, or a lot more for our money by doing the four fixtures.
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jinks. Other questions or comments? Mr. Barwi?
Just a comment as one who's a parent that's used that field for years, because I've got a couple of soccer kids. I will tell you that it isn't so much that we need more facilities as it's that we need them, as Mr. Nawatney said, to be spread out because the fact that the field is so big. And I think the addition of the portalettes or porta potties, whatever they're called, that could work well as a temporary solution for the time being. But I do hope in the long run scheme of things that we will be able to make that work with a permanent building at some point when dollars make more sense to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barwi. Other questions or comments? I will support this as well. I want to thank PBC for being thoughtful on this project. I think it is a lot of money. There's no question we recognize that Quinnipiac is important and we need to provide appropriate facilities there. In my opinion, the right first step is to renovate the facility that's there. We can do it certainly well within the money that's been allocated. We'll go ahead and do that, and it gives us a little bit of time to try to figure out what is the best economics for the next phase of this. And I tend to agree with Mr. Barwi that because of the size of the building, or excuse me, the size of the field and where the spectators generally are, it's a long walk to go to that far location. So I think having 2 facilities is maybe the best way to deal with this. And, if we can do some value engineering potentially on a smaller facility on the other end of the field, I'd certainly be all ears to that. But I think this is a good first step and at least get that older facility, which clearly needs improvement, fixed. The money's available, get it done, and then we'll move on to the next phase. So I will support this. And with that, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Motion passed unanimously, or those that are here. Thank you, Mr. Nawatney. And thank you to the PBC for your work and thoughtfulness on this.
Sure. I'll pass your compliments on to them. They did a great job on this one as
Yeah.
all of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably not the right solution for some people. They'd love to have brand new facilities, but I think it's the right balance for the moment, and that's the right thing to do. So I'm glad that they spent the time to be thoughtful on it.
And we'll try to get them some relief by doing something temporary and
I think,
provide
some
options.
temporary portalets on the other end of the field, just until we come up with a more permanent solution is probably the way to handle that, so people don't have to walk so far.
Sounds
You really have to get in your car in some respects to drive over to that, depending on where you are on one end of the field.
It's a long walk.
It is a long walk, and we recognize it, folks, but, we're just trying to make sure we get the most value for the taxpayers' dollars, and I think this is the right step. So thank you, George.
Thank you.
With that, we'll move on to 9H, discussion and possible approval of town clerk use of special funds. Ms. Pavano. Yes, well, I'm going to discuss it. We have it on here, but you're right. I'm not going to have you talk about it because thank you for reminding me. Mr. Talbot raised a question earlier today, which we have not had an opportunity to properly vet. This is not a time-sensitive issue, Sean, that I'm aware of.
That's right. That's my understanding.
So I think with that, unless there's anybody who has any concerns, I just assume table this motion so that we can get Mr. Talbot's questions properly answered. It's a valid question. I want to make sure that we're all comfortable with how these funds are used. It really surrounds making sure that all of the uses of these dollars are appropriate relative to the money that we're getting, that we can use these dollars for these exact uses. And there is a question on one item that we haven't been able to finalize. So before we go ahead and vote on this, I think we should table this and we'll take it up at our next meeting. Any issues with members of the council on that? And thank you, Mr. Talbot, for raising that. And I know Attorney D'Onofrio is working on that final answer. He'll get it to us as soon as possible. So thank you, Ms. Pavano, for reminding me on that. And we'll move on to 9I, acceptance and appropriation of an American Rescue Plan grants to Connecticut State Libraries for $20,789.31 for furniture, equipment, and extended Wi-Fi for the library. Mr. Borwe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution 071321-10. Be it resolved that the town council accepts and appropriates $20,789.31 in American Rescue Plan funding distributed by the Connecticut State Library for furniture, equipment, and extended Wi-Fi for the library.
Thank you, Mr. Borwe. Thank you, Mr. Talbot. Questions or comments? Or excuse me. Yeah, back to you, Mr. Borwe.
Thank you. The Budget Committee reviewed this earlier, and it was the library staff that came up with the necessary items that they felt would enhance the experience of the library. The equipment that's going to be easier to maintain, easier to clean, easier to deal with. The Wi-Fi extended we have families in town that have had issues about not having Wi-Fi at home, not strong enough to do what they want, and they sit on the steps in the front or they sit in their car in the back. And it isn't even just families with kids. Sometimes there's others that have the same issue. And I think this addresses a need, and it does it with grant money. And I think it's a positive use. And one of the great attributes of our library is our continued improvement and meeting the needs of our residents.
Thank you, Mr. Borwe. Questions or comments from members of the council? Seeing none, with that, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passed unanimously. Those that are here. We'll move on to 9J, approval of a 2021 Neighborhood Assistant Act submissions from the Hometown Foundation and Cheshire Academy. Mr. Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution number 071321-11. Be it resolved that the town council approves the Cheshire Academy submission for their high-efficiency boiler replacement project and the Hometown Foundation, Inc. submission for their Police K-9 project to the State of Connecticut 2021 Neighborhood Assistance Act program as presented at public hearing on November 15, 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Do we have a second? Thank you, Ms. Pavano. Mr. Walsh.
Yeah, well, the Neighborhood Assistance Act is designed to help tax exempt organizations, I believe, by providing corporations who make cash contributions to these groups will get a business tax credit. Maybe Sean might be able to explain that a little bit better than I did, but it's an important thing for both Cheshire Academy and the Hometown Foundation are asking for the maximum amount of $150,000. Cheshire Academy for their for a boiler, and Hometown Foundation for their wonderful Police K-9 program that they do around the state. So I think that it's great, and if they can, if these funds could help them keep moving ahead, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, I would just add, you explained it very well, and that's exactly right. It's a business tax credit, and both of these organizations have participated in this program before, and I think there were no objections at the public hearing last month, and I think it's here for your approval.
Thank you. Questions or comments from members of the council? Obviously, we did speak about this during the public hearing, and this is really, in my opinion, nothing but a formality, and with that, I guess I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously of those that are here. We will now move on to item 10, Town Manager Report and Communications. Yes, sir.
To, like a motion for the, addition to the agenda for new business?
For which item?
It would be for the, Covanta.
Well, I thought we were going to talk about that in executive
Okay.
session and then determine whether we wanted to vote or not, and then we would do it at that point. So I would rather discuss it in executive session, and then we can make a determination as to whether we want to make a vote on something after that conversation. Okay? You're welcome. Okay, so with that, we'll go back to number 10, Town Manager Report and Communications. And then we're going to do executive session at the end, and if there is a motion for Covanta, we will do it at the end of our meeting. So with that, to you, Town Manager Kimball.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Be pretty brief tonight, but I will start, as we have for the last year and a half, with updates on the COVID-19 pandemic. Obviously, we heard earlier from Ms. Esposito, so you'll see the charts that we've pulled here from DPH confirm what we were discussing earlier this evening. Cases continue to steadily decline, dramatically decline, frankly, since the peak experienced back in January. You'll see on the yellow line there on the graph that we are at very low rates, and echoing what Ms. Esposito said, for the past 14 reporting days, DPH says that the town of Cheshire has reported just 8 new cases, which is really great compared to where we were a year ago. Our local positivity rate over the past 7 DPH reporting days stands as of today at 0.3%. Again, echoing what Maura was saying, as we dropped under 1. And today, this report showed 5 positives over the last 7 days out of 1,718 tests. So again, just some positive news there with respect to our COVID rates. Also, from the DPH website this morning, you'll see that 71.52% of all Cheshire residents have received at least 1 vaccination dose. So again, you can see Cheshire there on the DPH map in a little bit of a dark blue, just highlighting that we are one of the towns at the forefront of the vaccines. And I think that's a lot to be proud of. Moving on from COVID, for this report, the Ion Bank Cheshire Half Marathon and 5K will be held this year. As you recall, it's normally in April, but this year, due to COVID, they postponed until allowed and safe to do so. And I think organizers have made the right decision that race will be held this Sunday, July 18th. I'll be beginning a little earlier, in part due to the heat, at 8 a.m. We did have a meeting. Town staff and public safety officials met with the race organizers a couple of weeks ago to review a number of safety modifications that they will be implementing this year. Again, as a result of COVID and possible heat this time of year. Significantly, there will be no kids fun run race this year, and no post-race really activities other than some music. So no kids events there. Organizers do expect participation levels to be about half of pre-pandemic levels, so about 1,000 to 1,200 runners. A little update on the 2021 Cheshire Fall Festival. Again, it's nice to see some of these events coming back to Cheshire this year. The Chamber of Commerce and the town of Cheshire are pleased to be bringing back the incredibly popular Cheshire Fall Festival for 2021. This is the 33rd Cheshire Fall Festival, which will be held Friday and Saturday, September 10th and 11th at Bartlam Park. As in past years, this event brings our entire community together in support of local businesses, crafters, farms, orchards, and local nonprofits. The celebration begins with the Food Truck Friday. That will be on the 10th, followed by a festival day on Saturday with booths with local vendors and organizations, a car show, musical performances, and fireworks, and much, much more. This year's event will also include a very special memorial recognition, as it is the 20th anniversary of September 11th. Ceremony will be held with bagpipers, a moment of silence, scheduled to be held at noon on Saturday during the Fall Festival. So note that. Hopefully everyone can attend. Again, a few more items coming up. The Cheshire Chamber of Commerce is also holding its annual golf tournament Tuesday, July 20th from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the Wallingford Country Club. Proceeds fund ongoing chamber activities, including scholarships for CHS seniors. To register, please visit cheshirechamber.org. And also a human services program that we're very proud to announce and publicize. This August, Cheshire Human Services is offering support to the post-pandemic transition for middle and high school students. The program will be split between student and parent support groups and will consist of 4 sessions per group. The sessions focus on managing stress, anxiety, building coping and distress tolerance skills, establishing an effective back-to-school routine, and more. To register or for more information, Cheshire Human Services can be reached at 271-6690 or at CheshireHumanServices@CheshireCT.org. The registration deadline is July 26th, so please be sure to register and see below for more dates and times. These are available on our website for different dates for middle school, different dates and times for middle school and high school students and parents. Again, just a reminder of our Bartlett Beats Summer Concert Series will be every Friday in August with rain dates the following Tuesday for each event. So these events will be August 6th, 13th, 20th, and 27th. So we encourage everybody to come out for what should be a great lineup of shows. And just a list of some upcoming council committee meetings and special meetings and school modernization meetings to close out the report. That's all, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kimball. Questions or comments for Mr. Kimball's report? Yeah, Mr. Talbot, of course, absolutely.
Late thought came into my mind. Sean, on the half marathon, I know you said the numbers are going to be down this year, but I always hear from constituents in the fourth because that's where it's held. Have we done anything about notifying neighbors? I know that we've had that, the sign up near Higgins and everything else. So
I believe the 2 mobile boards are up, and I know they, Mr. Beisowitz was reaching out to a lot of the neighbors, particularly there around the high school, where on Elmwood and whatever, where they normally make sure that they've contacted them and warned them in advance. So I think they've done their traditional amount, and I think it will be, again, they're probably a little disappointed that the numbers will be down. They hold so many other races in other towns, they can kind of predict how many we're going to have, and based on where registration numbers are now. So it should be, again, roughly half of a normal number, which I think will probably decrease the overall impact in the area. But from our meeting 2 weeks ago, they were following all the normal notifications to the neighbors. So, but we just wanted to echo that and publicize it so people aren't surprised. Given normally it's in April, obviously July might be a little surprising, but for anyone that maybe hadn't been notified.
thanks. Just anticipating phone traffic.
Yeah, it's possible.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Talbot. Other questions, Mr. Walsh?
Yeah, along the same lines, they will be using the trail for a good part of that too, correct? So if people are planning a nice leisurely walk on the trail at 8 a.m. on Sunday, you may want to stay on the north end of the trail versus the south end of the trail.
Yeah, it's certainly an area to avoid if you want to, avoid that traffic and crush. They do come through relatively quickly, obviously, and they do get on the trail relatively early in the race. So I think that has mitigated the impact on the trail. Typically in this case, certainly by 9 o'clock, 9:30, most of that trail near Cornwall at least has already been passed through.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Any other questions or comments? No? A couple quick things. Sean, one of the things that jumped out at me in the police report was, which I found a little odd, and maybe it's not, but 5 vehicles had their catalytic converters removed while in an industrial park on Notter Drive. I know, Chief, or no one's here from Cheshire Police Department. You may not have any intimate knowledge on this, but I just thought that was kind of an odd one. We've seen car break-ins. We've seen some thefts. But I find it interesting that they have enough time to remove catalytic converters in 5 vehicles. Sounds like was it all at once? Do we know that?
I can't speak with any certainty on that other than to know that it is becoming a bit of a trend, not just in our community, but around, I think, from prices on, I guess, the black market or whatever it is where these things are sold or taken. The value has certainly come up to a high enough amount that certain people seem to be taking advantage. And I have no doubt there are probably 1 or 2 individuals that are circling around and just making it. I am aware through conversations both with actually George Nowotny and Jack Kasner, who were aware of or had seen a video of somebody doing it on a home security camera. It's something I know the police are monitoring very closely and trying to get out to to prevent to the best ability we can. But I can certainly ask for some more follow-up information to see if there's anything more I can share with the council.
It just jumped out at me, so it's not that critical that
Yeah.
you get right back to me on it,
Sure.
but it's just, I thought it was a bit
Mr. Chair,
odd.
just to
It
add
is a concern,
to that,
yeah.
I mean, I'm in the metals market and I understand the reasoning why, because catalytic converters have platinum and rhodium. Rhodium is at an all-time high, almost $20,000 an ounce. There has been a very large increase in stolen catalytic converters over the past 6 months. Because rhodium a year ago was around $500 an ounce. It's almost 20,000 an ounce. So you're going to see that. So make sure your cars are locked and protected. But, again, catalytic converter, I don't know how you lock it. It's just,
Well, and obviously people need to be aware of their surroundings when they're moving to their vehicles. If you surprise someone while they're working on your car, it could turn into a bad situation. So I just want the public to be aware. We have a very professional police department. I know they're doing everything they can. We have struggled, I think, as a state and as a nation with, some of these break-ins and some of these thefts. And I think we're trying to get our arms around it, but it looks like it's morphing into other things as well. And obviously, Mr. Walsh, you're explaining why. So thank you for that. And I just wanted to talk a minute about it. Yes, Ms. Pavano. Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Pavano.
I know the chief is not here, but I wondered if we could have an idea of how the stolen vehicle thefts are coming, whether we're getting worse or whether we're getting better, or exactly where we are in that. I know it's a situation that's happening in all the towns in the whole area, but I'm just concerned, and I would kind of like, maybe the rest of the council too, would like an update of how we stand with that.
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to relay that request. I talked to the
Thank you.
chief just today he was on a chief's call statewide earlier today, actually, and he and I touched base on some of that conversation. And I think that's certainly some stuff that we could bring back and share with the council at an upcoming meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pavano. And the last thing I had, Sean, is I really just want to recognize that the Cheshire Police Department, as I said a minute ago, I believe we have a very professional police department that works very hard to keep our community safe, maintain their professionalism, and treat everybody well. And I notice here that there's, as always, a whole lot of training going on in the Cheshire Police Department, and it's noted here in your report where we have a whole plethora of individuals who are expanding their education and their knowledge, whether it be firearms training, recruit training, first line supervisor training, emergency medical responder training, CPD SRT had 2 trainings, and our school resource officers attended school security training, which obviously is really important, and so on. So I think I just wanted to take a moment to recognize our Cheshire Police Department for their professionalism and their commitment to this community. I think they do a wonderful job, and I think the community needs to know that they're continuing to better themselves through a variety of training, and it's referenced here, and kudos to them. So thank you. And with that, if there's nothing else on the reports, on the status reports, I'll move on to item 11, which is reports of committees of the council. Chairman's report on my left, Mr. Walsh.
no report right now.
Okay, Ms. Pavano? Mr. Barwi?
We're still working with the capital budget, and I'm still taking into account all the comments that we've all had at our workshops. We'll have something more for the end of the month. Considerable time has been spent with Mr. Golick and with Mr. Kimball on refining some of the numbers for the Bartlett South project, because that is the biggest item in the capital budget and requires considerable time. And so we're still working on that, following up, just to give you guys all an update on that. And hopefully the last week of the month when we have that, we're a month and a half away from deadline. So we've got time.
Thank you, Mr. Barwi. Mr. Slocum, anything? Okay, thank you, Mr. Slocum. We will move on to, actually, before I move on to miscellaneous, I just do a quick update. The council, as you know, has been holding some specific meetings relative to school modernization on the heels of the School Modernization Committee's proposal. The Board of Ed has been working on some of their work relative to the educational specs and evaluating the information that's in front of them. The council, after we completed our operating budget, has engaged in that process as well. We are having meetings on a reasonably regular basis. We're trying to do them every 2 weeks. I think our next meeting is scheduled for the 28th of this month. I know it's a little dicey with all of the vacations and such through the summer, but we want to keep this process moving. I encourage members of the public to attend any of these meetings. There will always be opportunity to speak relative to thoughts that you have, as you have throughout this entire process. This has been a very open and collaborative process from the beginning. I certainly commend all the work that SMC did and the 13 members who committed a year and a half of their time. I know the Board of Ed is working very hard, doing the things that they are needing to do at this point, and so are we as a town council, and that process will continue. And we always want to make sure that we are open and transparent with that process, and that's why in any meetings that we have, we will make sure there's public opportunity to speak or make a comment. So I implore people to show up on the 28th, assuming that meeting continues, and make your thoughts known to us. So I think the process is moving forward. It's a tough process. It's a very expensive process, but I think we all want to make sure it's a thorough process and that we get it right. And so we will continue moving down those tracks. And again, please reach out to us in any way, shape, or form. You want to send us an email, you can certainly do that. Any thoughts that you have. I know Ms. Talbot, our Assistant Town Manager, has been very transparent in making things available to the public to give us comment in any way that they need to, whether it be coming to a meeting or whether it be through email or through any other form. So we will continue along those lines. And with that, I guess I will move on to miscellaneous and appointments, liaison report, starting at my left. Mr. Walsh,
No report.
Ms. Pavano, Mr. Bowery, Mr. Talbot, Mr. Jinks
No report.
from afar, Mr. Slocum from afar.
No report.
Thank you. Appointments to boards and commissions, Ms. Pavano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 3 appointments from the Republican Town Committee. The first one is Corey Nash to the Public Safety Commission. This is a new appointment. The term is from present to 1/31/2024. The second appointment is Guy Darter to the Public Safety Commission. His term is from present to 1/31/2024. And the third one is Linda Blackburn to the Environmental Commission. Her term of office is from present to 1/31/2025.
Usually Mr. Talbot seconds, correct? I'm going to give you that opportunity since that's been our protocol for a while. Sorry, Mr. Walsh.
Having none of my own, I'm happy to second those of Ms. Pavano.
And Ms. Pavano, they are all Republicans, I'm assuming?
Yes, they are.
Yeah, usually we just denote what party they are
Yes,
from.
sorry.
Sorry, Mr. Walsh, but we've been doing this for a long time. And I know that those that make those recommendations usually second it. So, and you have nothing, Mr. Talbot? Okay. Are there any questions or comments on these recommendations and these appointments? No? Okay, with that, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously of those that are there. We'll now move on to item 13, Town Attorney Report and Communications. Town Attorney D'Onofrio, thank you, sir. Appreciate you being here. And with that, I believe we're ready to go back to items for executive session. To include, I don't think we have any labor negotiations, but to discuss contract negotiations to include our town manager, our assistant town manager, our town attorney, and Mr. Nowotny. Mr. Jascott, no? Okay, so just to include those 4 individuals, town attorney, our town manager, our assistant town manager, and Mr. Nowotny, our public works director. Thank you, Mr. Talbot. Thank you, Mr. Bowery. All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. So we will be going into executive session to discuss those items. We may potentially have a vote on an item that we're discussing in executive session, but we may not. So we'll determine that when we come out. And I thank everyone for being here or watching tonight.